You can do better. Oh, great. All right, I call the Committee on Ordinances, Elections, Legislative Matters to order at 6:07. Councilor Denley, thank you very much for making the arrangements to be here tonight. I want to go over the revolving fund so we can vote it out of committee tonight, talk about it on the floor this evening. From the docket of April 18th, 2017, and I'm going to read the whole thing now so we can waive it later. Cool. I entertain a motion to amend the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro as follows. Insert the following as proposed into revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, Chapter 20, Departmental Revolving Fund Ordinance, GLC 44, General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. 20. Purpose. This ordinance establishes and authorizes revolving funds for use by city departments, boards, committees, agencies, offices in connection with the operation of programs or activities that generate fees, charges, other receipts to support all or some of the expenses of those programs or activities. These revolving funds are established under and governed by General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half. Expenditure limitations. A department or agency head, board, committee, or officer may incur liabilities against and spend monies from a revolving fund established and authorized by this ordinance without appropriation, subject to the following limitations. A. Fringe benefits of full-time employees whose salaries or wages are paid from the fund shall also be paid from the fund. B. No liability shall be incurred in excess of the available balance of the fund. C. The total amount spent during a fiscal year shall not exceed the amount authorized by the City Council on or before July 1st of that fiscal year, or any increased amount that the authorization that is later approved during that fiscal year by the City Council and Mayor. Interest. Interest earned on monies credited to a revolving fund established by this ordinance shall be credited to the general fund. Procedures and reports. Except as provided in General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, this ordinance, the laws, charter provision, ordinances, rules, regulations, policies, and procedures that govern the receipt and the custody of city monies and the expenditure and payment of city funds shall apply to the use of a revolving fund established and authorized by this ordinance. The city auditor shall include a statement on the collections credited to each fund, the encumbrances and expenditures charged to the fund, and the balance available for expenditure in the regular report the city auditor provides the department, board, committee, agency, or officer on appropriations made for its use. Authorized revolving funds. 20-1 Police Replacement of Vehicles, Fund 2601. Fund name. There shall be a separate fund called the Police Replacement of Vehicles Fund for the use of the Police Department. 20-1.2 Revenues. The city auditor shall establish the Police Replacement Vehicles Revolving Fund number 2601 as a separate fund and credit to the fund 50% of the income generated by traffic fines collected for the City of Attleboro by the Attleboro District Court, the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles, 100% of the proceeds from the disposal of surplus police vehicles and vehicle-related equipment, and 100% of the fees charged for the use of police vehicles on traffic details. 20-1.3 Purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the Chief of Police, with the approval of the Mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Police Replacement Vehicles Fund number 2601 in support of traffic enforcement and for the purchase and maintenance of police department vehicles and vehicle-related equipment. 20-1.4 Fiscal years. The Police Replacement of the Vehicles Fund number 2601 shall operate for the fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Police Replacement Vehicles Fund number 2601 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017 become the opening balance in the Police Replacement of Vehicles Fund. 20-2 Off-Street Parking Fund number 2602. 20-2.1 Fund name. There shall be a separate fund called Off-Street Parking Fund for the use of the Department of Budget and Administration. 20-2.2 Revenues. The city auditor shall establish the Off-Street Parking Fund number 2602 as a separate fund and to credit the fund 50% of the income generated from parking fees and fines for parking violations. 20-2.3 Purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the parking clerk, with the approval of the Director of Budget and Administration and the Mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Off-Street Parking Fund number 2602 to support parking enforcement and to maintain and improve city-owned public parking areas. 20-2.4 fiscal years. The off-street parking fund number 2602 shall operate for the fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in this existing off-street parking meter receipt fund number 2602 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017, become the opening balance in the off-street parking fund. 20-3 Protective Inspection Services Fund 2603. 20-3.1 fund name, there shall be a separate fund called the Protective Inspection Services Fund for use of the Department of Inspection. 20-3.2 revenues, the city auditor shall establish the Protective Inspection Services Fund number 2603 as a separate fund and credit the fund 65% of fees paid for plumbing, gas, electrical inspection permits when needed to be performed by an outside contractor. 20-3.3 purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the inspector of buildings, with approval of the mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Protective Inspection Services Fund number 2603 for the cost of professional services and established by the ordinance for appointed plumbing and gas inspectors and all alternate inspectors. 20-3.4 fiscal years. The Protective Inspection Services Fund number 2603 shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Protective Inspection Services Fund number 2603 shall roll forward after the close on the books of fiscal year 2017, become the opening balance in the Protective Inspection Services Fund. I'm extremely glad I had that second cup of coffee this afternoon.
You have more pages?
20-4 Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund number 2604. 20-4.1 fund name, there shall be a separate fund called the Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund for use by the Health Department. 20-4.2 revenues, the city auditor shall establish the Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund number 2604 as a separate fund and credit to the fund an amount voted annually by the Honorable Municipal Council per unit of the solid waste fee. In addition, any of the fees paid for special solid waste disposal, recycling programs, and all income generated from the sale of rubbish bags and compost will be credited to the fund. 20-4.3 purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the health agent, with the approval of the mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund number 2604 for the operation of solid waste, recycling, and household hazardous waste disposal programs, including salaries. In addition, the superintendent of Parks and Forestry shall provide operational support and staff as needed for the operation of the city compost site. 20-4.4 fiscal years, the Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund number 2604 shall operate for the fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund number 2604 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017, become the opening balance in the Residential Special Waste Disposal Fund. 20-5 Council on Aging Fund 2606. 20-5.1 fund name, there shall be a separate fund called the Council on Aging Fund for use by the Council on Aging. 20-5.2 revenues, the city auditor shall establish the Council on Aging Fund 2606 as a separate fund and credit to the fund all income generated by senior programs, including revenue received as sponsorship for programs. 20-5.3 purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the director of the Council on Aging, with the approval of the mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend money from the Council on Aging Fund number 2606 for the printing and postage of the senior newsletter and for any other expenses on Council of Aging activities. 20-5.4 fiscal years, the Council on Aging Fund 2606 shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Council on Aging Fund number 2606 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017, become the opening balance in the Council on Aging Fund. 20-6, Cape and Park Zoo Fund, number 2607. 20-6.1 fund name, there shall be a separate fund called the Cape and Park Zoo Fund for use by the Zoo Division of the Parks and Forestry. 20-6.2 revenues, the city auditor shall establish the Cape and Park Zoo Fund, number 2607, as a separate fund to credit and credit to the fund all fees paid for the admission to Cape and Park Zoo, income from the gift shop, concession operations, education programs from individuals or organizations in support of the operation of Cape and Park Zoo, and fees for programs in support of AZA animal conservation programs. 20-6.3 purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the zoo director, with the approval of the superintendent of Parks and Forestry and the mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Cape and Park Zoo Fund number 2607 for the operation of Cape and Park, including salaries for capital upgrades to the zoo and in support of AZA conservation programs and organizations related to the zoo's species survival collection. 20-6.4 fiscal years, the Cape and Park Zoo Fund, number 2607, shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Cape and Park Zoo Fund, number 2607, shall roll forward after the close on the books on fiscal year 2017, become the opening balance in Cape and Park Zoo Fund. 20-7 Fire Alarm System Testing Fund, number 2609. 20-7.1 Fund and name. There shall be a separate fund called the Fire Alarm Testing Fund for use by the Fire Department. 20-7.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish a Fire Alarm System Testing Fund, number 2609, as a separate fund and credit to the fund 50% of all fees paid in association with municipal fire alarm systems. 20-7.3 purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the fire chief, with the approval of the mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend money from the Fire Alarm Testing Fund, number 2609, to support fire alarm activities and for the purchase and maintenance of communication equipment for the fire department. Fund may also be used to pay for the fire alarm superintendent stipend. 20-7.4 fiscal years, the Fire Alarm Test number 2609 shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Fire Alarm Testing Fund 2609 shall roll forward after the close on the books of the fiscal year 2017 and become the opening balance in the Fire Alarm Testing Fund. 20-8 Fire Ambulances, number 2610. 20-8.1 Fund name. There shall be a separate fund called Fire Ambulances Fund for the use of the fire department. 20-8.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish the Fire Ambulances Fund number 2610 as a separate fund and credit to the fund 40% of the income generated by charges for municipal ambulance service. 20-8.3 Purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the Fire Chief, with the approval of the Mayor, may incur liabilities and spend money from the Fire Ambulances Fund number 2610 for the purchase of lease of municipal ambulances, for the equipment and maintenance of said municipal ambulances, for personal expenses and/or stipends associated with operating and administrating the City's emergency medical service, and for expenses related to third-party billing. 20-8.4 fiscal years, the Fire Ambulance Fund 2610 shall operate for fiscal years that began on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Fire Ambulances Fund number 2610 shall roll forward after the close of the books of the fiscal 2017 and become the opening balance for Fire Ambulances Fund. 20-9 Health Immunization Fund 2611. 20-9.1 Fund name. There shall be a separate fund called the Health Immunization Fund for the use of the Health Department. 20-9.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish the Health Immunization Fund number 2611 as a separate fund and credit to the fund 100% of the income generated by the administration of vaccines and testing. 20-9.3 Purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the health agent, with the approval of the mayor, may incur liabilities and spend monies from the Health Immunization Fund number 2611 for the purposes of necessary immunizations for residents of the City of Attleboro or as determined to be necessary to prevent the spread of diseases. 20-9.4 Fiscal years. The Health Immunization Fund number 2611 shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It's further authorized that the balance in the existing Health Immunization Fund number 2611 shall roll forward after the close of the books on the fiscal year 2017, become the opening balance on the Health Immunization Fund.
Do you want me to take over?
If you want, that'd be fine.
Sure.
Thanks.
20-10 Recreation Fund 2614. 20-10.1 Fund name. There shall be a separate fund called the Recreation Fund for use by the Recreation Department. 20-10.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish the Recreation Fund 2614 as a separate fund and credit to the fund income generated by Recreation Department activities, rental of Recreation Department facilities, and state revenue in support of George I. Spatcher Pool. 20-10.3 Purposes and expenditures. During each fiscal year, the Recreation Director, with the approval of the Mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Recreation Fund 2612 for the operation of Recreation Department activities, including wages for program staff, recreational development activities, and capital upgrades to recreational facilities, 20-10.4 fiscal year. The Recreational Fund 2614 shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Recreation Fund 2614 shall roll forward for the close of books on fiscal year 2017 and become the opening balance for the Recreation Fund. 20-11 Animal Welfare Fund 2615. 20-11.1 Fund Name. There shall be a separate fund called the Animal Welfare Fund for the use by the Animal Control Division of the Park and Forestry Department. 20-11.2 Revenues. The city auditor shall establish the Animal Welfare Fund 2615 as a separate fund and credit to the fund 1/3 of the income generated by the adoption fees derived under City Ordinance 9-2 as amended for both dogs and felines, and receive $1 of every fee collected pursuant to Section 9-43 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro. 20-11.3 Purposes and Expenditures. During each fiscal year, the Animal Control Officer, with the approval of the Superintendent of Parks and Forestry and the Mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Animal Welfare Fund 2615 for the purposes of direct services of the care of animals, such as medical treatment, spay and neutering of animals, and food for animals. Prohibited expenditures are building maintenance, facility care expenses, and salary and wages. 20-11.4 fiscal years. The Animal Welfare Fund 2615 shall operate for fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in the existing Animal Shelter Fund number 2615 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017 and become the opening balance of the Animal Welfare Fund. 20-12 Police False Alarm Fund 2616. 20-12.1 Fund Name. There shall be a separate fund called the Police False Alarm Fund for the use by the Police Department. 20-12.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish the Police False Alarm Fund 2615 as a separate fund and credit to the fund 100% of the income generated by false alarm fees and fines. 20-12.3 Purposes and Expenditures. During each fiscal year, the police chief, with the approval of the mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Police False Alarm Fund 2616 to provide any needed training and equipment and to provide any personnel expenses, including overtime associated with operating and administering the false alarm ordinance. 20-12.4 fiscal year, the Police False Alarm Fund 2616 shall operate for fiscal year that begins on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance of the existing Police False Alarm Fund 2616 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017 and become the opening balance in the Police False Alarm Fund. 20-13 Animal Shelter Building Fund 2618. 20-13.1 Fund Name. There shall be a separate fund called Animal Shelter Building Fund for use by the Animal Control Division of the Park and Forestry Department. 20-13.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish the Animal Shelter Building Fund 2618 as a separate fund and credit to the fund late fees collected under City Ordinance 9-37.1 and 9-43. 20-13.3 Purposes and Expenditures. During each fiscal year, the Animal Control Officer, with the approval of the Superintendent of Parks and Forestry and the Mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Animal Shelter Fund for the upkeep and maintenance of the Animal Shelter Building. 20-13.4 fiscal years, the Animal Shelter Building Fund 2618 shall operate for fiscal year that begins on or after July 1st, 2017. Is further authorized that the balance of the existing Animal Shelter Fund 2508 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017 and become the opening balance in the new Animal Shelter Building Fund. You'll finish it?
Sure. 20-14 Fingerprinting Fund number 2619. 20-14.1 Fund Name. There shall be a separate fund called Fingerprinting Fund for use by the Police Department. 20-14.2 Revenues. The City Auditor shall establish the Fingerprinting Fund number 2619 as a separate fund and credit the fund fees collected under the City Ordinances, Section 15-6.4. 20-14.3 Purposes and Expenditures. During each fiscal year, the Police Chief, with the approval of the Mayor, may incur liabilities against and spend monies from the Fingerprint Fund for costs associated with the administration of the fingerprinting system as required by Mass General Law, Chapter 6, Section 172B.5. A portion of the fee is to be forwarded to the Fingerprint Identity Verification Trust Fund. 20-14.4 Fiscal years. The Fingerprinting Fund number 2619 shall operate for the fiscal years that begin on or after July 1st, 2017. It is further authorized that the balance in account 8910-245005 shall roll forward after the close of the books on fiscal year 2017 become the opening balance in the new fingerprinting fund.
Second.
Thank you. Whew. Vice President Denley, thank you for your help on that. That was quite a lot of reading. So, George, aren't you glad you came for that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you did, my friend. So this is, first of all, I want to thank, the mayor, the administration, Deb Gould especially, who worked within the confines of the Massachusetts Modernization Act to come up with the bulk of the ordinance to really kind of take that off of our plate, so it just falls more in line with what was intended by the Modernization Act. Yeah, Deb Gould came down, spoke about it. I know you'd like to make an amendment?
Not yet. I know
Okay.
you're talking with the city solicitor.
Yes.
So I'm focused on 20-13,
Yep.
which is the Animal Shelter Building Fund.
Yes.
So this is a new fund which we're creating because we built the animal shelter.
Yep.
Yay. So I think Mr. Conti and I have the same sentiment. We want it to be kind of like a long-term capital fund
Yeah.
without the intentions of maybe drawing down every year,
Yep.
waiting until something big happens, like we need a new partial roof or something like that, and being able to subsidize that large capital expenditure in the future.
Correct.
So I know that we just want to pass this out of committee tonight,
Yep.
but I'm hoping that you will hear back from the city solicitor,
Yep.
and you can come up with some language so we can amend this before we pass it
Sure.
out of the full council.
Absolutely. So what we can do is, I'll follow up with the city solicitor again. She's working on a couple other things as well. And I'll see what she has to say about this. We can work that wording in. I think realistically we could, and I'd rather err on the side of caution as well, but I think what you're both suggesting makes sense. And the other thing this does is it allows us to strike the piece of business that you introduced close to a year and a half ago, because this is going to incorporate that as well. So I will look to vote it out of committee tonight. Between now and, I might even ask Frank if we can do a committee meeting on the 30th when we meet for the budget, because we're having a special meeting, just because timing-wise.
Okay.
We want to get going on this. Counselor?
So in thinking about the revolving funds and the purpose of the revolving funds and the revisions that have been inspired by the Municipal Modernization Act, I've called into question whether or not all of the funds should be 100% funded, rather than 50% going into the general fund. So as you went through all of the funds, you saw that some had 50, some had 100.
Some at 65.
Yep. And based on the principle that the people who work in government are paid by the taxpayers to be government employees and work for the people, there doesn't seem to be any validity to the argument that some of the money that's coming in from these particular sources should be put into the general fund to compensate those people for the time that they spend doing it, because they're going to be paid anyway, the city employees. This also plays to the indirect cost study,
Yep.
which I'm going to be asking to be done next year as well. So don't be surprised if there's some amendments coming out in the committee after you hear from the city solicitor
Yep.
to fully fund these revolving accounts up to 100%, so that there is truly the dedication of the funds given to the cause that they're meant to support. And the best example I can think of is the parking meters is a good
Yeah.
example. I was thinking of making some revisions to that, and I talked to Barry, and Barry's about it is parking facilities and the equipment that's in them. So, for example, the library kiosk for the tickets
Yep.
is included in that revolving fund.
Sure.
Policemen charge when they get a speeding ticket, give out a speeding ticket, certain money goes into the revolving fund. My feeling is that to make those revolving funds a powerful municipal tool, they should be 100% funded. And that the second part of my desire was to establish this long-lasting capital fund.
Sure.
Which, if we had done in 1961 with the high school, maybe we would have not be in the situation we're in today. That the major facilities, the Council on Aging, the library, the police department, the fire department, all could benefit from having a capital improvement fund
Yep.
on the side that would grow over the years.
Sure.
To replace a boiler or a roof or
Yep.
whatever. So, please don't rush through the revolving funds. Let's
No, I don't want to rush through it by any stretch,
There's a
but
deadline.
we do want to be prudent. You bring up great points, Counselor, you really do. I wish you brought some of them up when Deb Gould was down here, or even sent emails to me as I asked.
I
I could have
meant to do that.
I probably could have followed up with this a little bit more, but if you want to send an email, we're not on the same committee. I can work on this week as well, because I certainly don't want to rush it through by any stretch.
Well, I don't think I have anything more to say than that, but if you'd like the specifics, I could spend some time this weekend doing that. And
Sure, if you have them, I think it'd be fine, we can work together on it. So, yeah. Vice President Tillman?
Just to Mr. Conti, so I agree with much of your sentiment, but there is a practical constraint, which is, so this is in two parts. Here we're changing the ordinance, which would affect how much money we get from certain accounts. But then the second part is we set the monetary limits on each of the revolving funds. And there are percentage caps on both individual funds and on the cumulative amount that all of the revolving funds together can reach. So just talk to Deb Gould or Jay or whoever to make sure, because I remember at one point I was asking Deb, can we increase this here, can we increase that there? And she said, we can't. We're approaching that 2% or 4% limit or whatever it is on the amount of money we're allowed to have constrained through
was that
revolving funds.
before the Municipal Modernization Act? Because I thought the MMA,
That was before.
yeah, I think the MMA wiped all that away.
So there's no longer a percentage.
Yeah, and that leads into the second piece of business with, but I'll still follow up with Deb and just get that, because I'd rather be err on this side of caution than anything else at this point.
Yep.
Especially where this is such a big change for what we've been doing. I do appreciate, again, all the department heads who came together and worked with Deb on this. I think it shows what happens when we work together, so kudos. Any other comments, concerns, questions on this? Thank you both for your questions. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Also from the docket of, I believe, April 18th, I move to repeal Attleboro Special Act, an act increasing the expenditure limit on revolving funds in the city of Attleboro. Public hearing was held and closed on May 2nd, 2017.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President. We basically just went over this. This is now irrelevant given the ordinance we just read. Any other questions, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor of striking? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, I just want to go through, strike a couple different things that have been sitting here for a little bit. So from the docket of March 1st, 2016, I move to strike for dog license late fees. I entertain a motion. The motion was to approve the amendment of section 9-43 of licenses and permits ordinance by deleting the last sentence that states all late fees collected under this provision shall be reserved for the animal shelter building fund subject to further appropriation.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President. This, again, we just talked about, a piece of business that Mr. Conti brought in, which I held for almost a year and a half now, just because my fear was what would happen with these funds if we ended up striking it and there wasn't a vehicle for it to go into. We now have that vehicle, so I think it's prudent to strike it. Any other questions?
I just want to thank you, because you held it for so long, they had to do something with it. So that kind of gave
Worked
them
out.
impetus to make it the new revolving fund. So thank you.
No, thank you, and thank you for bringing it in, Council Conti. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. There's a couple more. All right, from the docket of May 20th, 2014, I move to strike the motion that reads to amend section 9-11 Hackney carriage by adding the following language to 9-11.7 as follows. The licensing authority that issues taxi cab licenses or Hackney carriage licenses shall also issue an official identifying document separate from a license, a Hackney license, to be placed in the rear interior of the vehicle with the driver's identifying picture, name, Hackney, or license number. This document shall be formatted so as to travel with the operator from cab to cab. Each cab shall also have affixed in the interior rear of the vehicle the name or trade number of the company number, company phone number, company rates per mile, either the medallion or vehicle number, both designated documents shall be visibly affixed either on the partition behind the head of the driver or the headrest of the driver so as to be made visible to passengers inside the vehicle. The licensing authority may designate the manner in which they provide such documentation to an authorized driver and the manner in which such document is affixed inside the vehicle. The cost for such documentation shall be added to the fee for such license by established by ordinance.
Second.
All right, thank you, Councilor Denley. This was a piece of business that was brought in, looking at this now, 3 years ago. I think we still need to do more work on it, but it really hasn't gained any traction. I think that with the way that resident transportation and public transportation is changing, I think it's an opportunity to look at the entire ordinance. But I think at this point, it would make sense to strike it and then just kind of look at everything collectively. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Finally, from the docket of December 18th, 2012, that another definition of, I move to strike, that another definition of the requirements for Class 2 dealer license wholesale only be created for dealers that would not be required to maintain a location for resale and/or repair due to the new practice of purchasing vehicles from auction, selling them directly through another auction, internet, or conventional.
Second.
Thank you, Vice President. And again, this one's been in here for about 4.5 years. I think that if it's something that, as online commerce this continues to change, evolve, if it's something we need to look at, we can always bring it back in again. Anything you want to add? I know you brought it in.
No, I guess I co-sponsored it when it came in. As licensed chair then, I'm licensed chair again. I haven't received any complaints about this. This
Okay.
hasn't really been a problem in the city, so it should be good to strike.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. And I would look to adjourn, you know what? Before we do that, we have some time to kill. No, you know what? I'll hold that off. I would look to adjourn at 6:37.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Council Blair, Council Conti, and Vice President Denley. We are adjourned at 6:37.
You're going to read Hawkins and Peddlers into the...
I was going to read Manchester, but, I'm going to wait on that. Again, waiting for the city solicitor on a couple things there, too. Awesome.
So you're thinking that's going to be heavily edited before it comes out into committee?
I don't know what heavily edited per se, but there's just a few things that I want to make sure that we're looking at. Being responsible.
Yep.
How you doing, Jay?
Hey, man, how are you?
Okay, I don't want to disturb you when you're doing it.
No, it's never an interference, buddy. It's always good to see you.
How you doing, Judy?
I'm doing great.
Hey, Jules.
You're no names. You're
Oh, yeah, no, I just had
Oh, you
switched
did?
my
no names.
yeah. Kind of works.
Okay, hey, you, get over there.
Hey, you, get over here.
Okay, I'm running across the street. You want it?
Water would be fantastic.
Actually, I'm
Did you go today? Thank you.
You're all set, Jim.
Thank you.
How's Ryan?
Oh, he's good.
Thank you.
He's good, thank you.
And February.
These are Jay's.
Yeah,
What's that one? Jay Puppy Clean.
I must say, I'll fit well.
Tony.
Like your necklace.
Hello, Mr.
Ordinance,
Vice
hello.
President.
Okay. Call the regular council meeting of May 16, 2017 to order. I'd ask you to please stand and join in the salute to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Again, just a reminder to turn off phones and similar electronic devices so that they don't interfere with our broadcast to different parts of the city. Thank you. Safety. So we have kind of an abbreviated agenda for this evening. Certainly it's just not scheduled, so we're going to go right to the mayor's communication.
May 16th, 2017. Dear Municipal Council, I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Veteran Services Ken Batchelor regarding the donation of gift certificates to Walmart from the American Legion Auxiliary at Post 313 of South Attleboro, totaling $225 in value. In accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to accept these generous donations to the City of Attleboro. Copies in your packets.
City Property and Claims Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Chief of Police Kyle P. Hegney regarding the receipt of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, or EOPSS, Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program. This program enables the purchase of body armor for police officers, whereas 50% of the cost is reimbursed by the U.S. Department of Justice, and the other 50% is reimbursed by Massachusetts EOPSS. The Massachusetts EOPSS aspect of the program is controlled by a 5-year contract. This contract covers purchases made between March 1st, 2017 and February 28th, 2022. The Bulletproof Vest Partnership follows a reimbursement protocol, and there is no match required by the City of Attleboro. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve expending such funds and any future grant amendments. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Treasurer Laura Gignac regarding the need for funding to pay the med tax for non-school and non-enterprise employees. A review of the med tax accounts reveals that additional funding will be required to cover the anticipated expenses for the remainder of fiscal year 2017. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $32,000 from undesignated fund balance, free cash, general government, to account treasurer, Medicare tax. Copies in your package.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Council on Aging, Madeline McNeely, regarding the receipt of a One Care Fund contract from the Executive Office of Elder Affairs in the amount of $19,329. The One Care Funding Award will provide partial salary, health benefits, supplies, and materials for the SHINE program. This contract covers dates between April 11, 2017 and March 30, 2019, with $4,832 to be used between April 11, 2017 and June 30th, 2017, and $14,497 to be used between July 1st, 2017 and March 30, 2018. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve expending such funds and any future grant amendments. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
In order to properly budget and account for wages earned through June 30th, it is necessary to fund the accrued payroll, which historically has been referred to as a 53rd pay week. Therefore, in order to provide sufficient funding for the accrued payroll, I respectfully request your honorable body to transfer $59,050 from account citywide reserve for compensation 53rd week to accounts as follows. $1,430 to account mayor's salary. $1,400 to account budget and administration salary. $1,260 to account auditor salary and wages. $1,200 to account collector salary. $2,875 to account clerk salary. $50,000 to account fire salary. $475 to account animal control salary, and $410 to account veteran salary.
Budget and Appropriations Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Water Superintendent Paul Kennedy requesting additional funds needed to install a new burner for a boiler at the West Street Water Treatment Plant. Although a vote was taken on February 21st, 2017 for an appropriation of $13,000, the lowest bid came in at $13,438. Additionally, on February 21st, 2017, a vote was taken for an appropriation for the high lift pumps at the West Street Water Treatment Plant, in which the final cost of the project came in lower than the voted amount and left a surplus of $4,813.56. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $1,438 from account Water Enterprise Fund High Lift Valve to account Water Enterprise Fund Boiler Repair. Copies in your packet.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Water Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding the need for funds to have an outside contractor replace worn-out hydrant gate nuts throughout the city. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $7,500 from account Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account Water Enterprise Fund Professional Services. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Water Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding the need to clean the vents/ductwork and treat for microbial contamination at the West Street Water Treatment Plant. There is a total of 6 air conveyance systems which were cleaned approximately 4 years ago, and this will ensure a clean working environment throughout the facility. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $7,875 from account Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund for transfer to account Water Enterprise Fund Professional Services. Copies in your package.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Wastewater Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding the need to make hydraulic repairs to the filter presses at the wastewater treatment plant. Due to the fact that the extent of the repairs is unknown until both units are disassembled, the quote solicited includes a Part A and Part B, and also includes a 12% contingency. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $75,000 from account Wastewater Enterprise Fund Chemicals to account Wastewater Enterprise Fund Other Financing Uses, and to further transfer $75,000 from account Wastewater Enterprise Fund Other Financing Uses to fund filter press improvements, other financing sources. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Superintendent of Park and Forestry, Dennis Walsh, regarding the need for funds to repair one of the 3 stairways within the flats area of Cape and Park. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $2,500 from account Park Salary to account Park Professional Services. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Superintendent of Park and Forestry, Dennis Walsh, regarding the need for funds to purchase a 200-gallon Lesco tree sprayer to be used to spray only the ornamental trees to combat winter moths and gypsy moths. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $4,194.38 from account Park Heating to account Park Supplies Equipment. Copies in your packets.
Personnel and Human Services Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould requesting to close Fund 3209 Nitrogen Pilot Plant. On April 19, 2011, your honorable body voted to fund the nitrogen pilot plant project from wastewater certified retained earnings in the amount of $639,000. The auditing department has been notified by wastewater superintendent that this project is complete. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $19,116.65 from account nitrogen pilot plant, other financing uses, to account wastewater enterprise fund, other financing sources. This transaction will close the nitrogen pilot plant fund and will increase the equity in the wastewater enterprise fund. Copies in your packet.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Water Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding the need for funds in order to provide sufficient funding for salaries for the remainder of fiscal year 2017. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $21,000 from account Water Enterprise Fund Reserve 53rd Week to account Water Enterprise Fund salary. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Acting Water Superintendent Paul Kennedy regarding the need for funds in order to provide for sufficient funding for overtime for the remainder of fiscal year 2017. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $7,000 from account Water Enterprise Fund Reserve 53rd Week to account Water Enterprise Fund overtime. Copies in your packet.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from City Auditor Deborah Gould requesting to close Fund 3213 10-mile sewer crossing. On December 17, 2013, your honorable body voted to fund the 10-mile river sewer crossing from wastewater certified retained earnings in the amount of $134,000. The auditing department has been notified by wastewater superintendent that this project is complete. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $943.20 from account 10-mile river sewer crossing - other financing uses to account wastewater enterprise fund, other financing sources. This transaction will close the 10-mile river sewer crossing fund and will increase the equity in the wastewater enterprise fund. Copies in your packets.
Public Works Committee, please.
Sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. We also have a supplemental communication from the mayor.
Supplemental communication, May 16th, 2017. Dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a joint communication from Fire Chief Scott LaChance and Police Chief Kyle Hegney regarding their intent to replace the computer-aided dispatch, or CAD, system software currently in use with the new system. This will provide many more enhanced services for both departments while also reducing annual maintenance agreement costs. Please know that this opportunity presented itself after your vote number 9 of May 2nd, 2017, which provided approval for the addition of a fire department module to the current CAD system in the amount of $47,800. Therefore, I ask that you rescind this vote as we are no longer pursuing this specific item. Further, I respectfully request your honorable body to transfer $47,000 from account Citywide Reserve Compensation 53rd Week to account police software. Copies in your packets.
Public Safety and Emergency Management Committee, please.
Sincerely, Kevin J. Dumas, Mayor.
Thank you. And the other communications, please.
Yes, we do. We have two. The first one is a rezoning petition from John W. Brederson and Rosaline Brederson regarding property located at 0 Lindsay Street, assessors plat numbers 94-1, and assessors lot numbers 10E and 17.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please. And Council Hall, this matter requires a joint public hearing of the Planning Board. Would you like to call for a joint public hearing of the Planning Board on June 20th at 7 p.m.?
Yes, Mr. President, that'd be fine.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. That hearing will be on June 20th. Thank you.
And the other communication is a letter from Derek A. Ross, President, CEO of BCWC, Inc., of 675 Washington Street, Suite 8, Box 117, South Attleboro, Mass., to Frank Cook, President of the Attleboro Municipal Council, regarding the letter of support / non-opposition so that his company can proceed with the Massachusetts Department of Public Health application process.
Zoning and Land Use Committee, please, and a copy to all members.
That is all, Mr. President.
Okay. Thank you. I understand a motion to go into Committee of the Whole.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're now at the Committee of the Whole. If there's anyone that has business or matters pertaining to the city they'd like to bring to the attention of the council, now would be the time. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to arise.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We're going to go on to committee reports. Committee reports will begin with Councilor Delicio.
Thank you, President Cook. Reporting for ordinances, elections, legislative matters. I have three motions to bring forward tonight, but before I do, I want to thank Vice President Denley, Councilor Blair, and Councilor Conti for partaking in my committee meeting where we read into the record the revolving funds. So you're all welcome who wasn't here, so you didn't have to sit through that. George had to sit through it, but the good news is it's read into the record now. I'm waiting for a couple things back from the city solicitor, so I hope to be able to move out, moving in front of the full council within the next 2 or 3 weeks. First, from the docket of March 1st, 2016, I move to strike the following item from the docket of March 1st, 2016. Approve the amendment of section 9-443 of the licenses and permits ordinance by deleting the last sentence that states all late fees collected under this provision shall be reserved for the animal shelter building fund subject to further appropriation.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
Yes, so Council Conti brought this in March 1st, 2016. I held it because had we not, there was some ambiguity as to where the funds in that account would go. We're at a point now where we can strike this because what will happen is the funds that are in there now will end up going into the revolving fund for the animal shelter.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes.
Right, thank you. From the docket of May 20th, 2014, I move to strike the following item from the docket of May 20th, 2014, to amend section 9-11 Hackney Carriage Taxi by adding the following language to 9-11.7 as follows. The licensing authority that issues taxi cab licenses or Hackney carriage licenses shall also issue an official identifying document separate from a license or Hackney license to be placed in the rear interior of the vehicle with the driver's identifying picture, name, and Hackney or licensing number. This document shall be formatted so as to travel with the operator from cab to cab. Each cab shall also have affixed in the interior rear of the vehicle name or the trade name of the company, company phone number, company rates per mile, either the medallion or vehicle number. Both designated documents shall be visibly affixed either on the partition behind the head of the driver or the headrest of the driver so as to be made visible to passengers inside the vehicle. The licensing authority may designate the manner in which they provide such documentation to an authorized driver in the manner in which such document is affixed inside the vehicle. The cost for such documentation shall be added to the fee for such license as established by the ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments?
This has been sitting here since May of 2014, and one thing I'm doing is looking at Hackney carriage and public transportation as a whole, and I think that there's some pieces in this that might make sense to bring back at a later date.
Okay. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter also requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Finally, from the docket of December 18th, 2012, I move to strike the item from the docket of December 18th, 2012, that another definition of the requirements for a Class 2 dealer license wholesale only be created for dealers that would not be required to maintain a location for resale and/or repair due to the new practice of purchasing vehicles from auction, selling them directly through another auction, internet, or convention.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
No, this was brought in December of 2012. Mr. Vice President Denley brought up in committee that as a licensing chair, he hasn't really had any requests for this, so it just seems prudent to strike it at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
And finally, I just want to remind everyone that Saturday is the May 20th, 8 a.m. to 11 is the 11th annual 10-mile river cleanup. So we'll be meeting at the Community Gardens on Riverbank Road, 37 Haywood Street. You know, hopefully Mr. Cooper will be there again.
Try.
All right, buddy.
See what the baseball schedule brings.
Totally understand. But no, it's a great time. You know, there's a bunch of us that get into the river. Some of us have no intention of getting into the river until we're pulling things out and you end up in the river. It happens, but it's amazing to see at the end of the day, you know, the stuff that we're pulling out of there, and you know, you look at the part of the river that we're cleaning up and it's not moving. By the end of the day, we're pulling out TVs, shopping carts, tires, tools, stuff. I mean, it's fantastic what you're pulling out of there. Please note the sarcasm. But by the end of it, it's great because you do see the river flowing. So it's a great opportunity to help and give back to the community. That being said, that's the business I have for ordinances, elections, and legislative matters, and I'd like to call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Council Hall.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. President, from zoning land use from the docket of May 16th, 2017, I moved that the municipal council provide a letter of non-opposition to BCWC Inc. relative to their proposed request for a special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary at the property located at 34 Extension Street in Attleboro.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Just so you know, I found in my massive research all of this stuff here. I've read everything I could possibly, articles, guidance, that the host agreement and the letter of non-opposition are usually done in conjunction with each other. There is a proposed host community agreement in the current application. However, the mayor did agree to consider changes suggested by the council. So, in given that, and also with discussions that our president had with our city solicitor, I would like to make a motion to amend this motion by adding 5 words at the end of this motion. And those words are contingent on host agreement execution. So the entire motion will read, I move that the municipal council provide a letter of non-opposition to BCWC Inc. relative to their proposed request for a special permit to operate a registered marijuana dispensary at the property located at 34 Extension Street in Attleboro, contingent on host agreement execution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any additional comments, please?
No, I think we've kind of communicated through email. We talked about this a little bit during the last meeting. I really don't have anything to add to that
Okay.
at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Councilor Conti, then Councilor Delissio, and then Councilor Blair. Councilor Conti.
Mr. President, this motion seems to fly against the letter you received today from the city solicitor stating that the people who received the letter of non-opposition have no jurisdiction over whether or not a host agreement or visibility, whether or not a host agreement has been agreed to or not agreed to, which disconnects my recommendation to put this into the motion. So, given that the city solicitor is saying that we should not make a motion to sign a letter of non-opposition that would include a contingency clause on the host agreement, I don't think that I can support this measure. But I support the council signing a letter of non-opposition. So now I'm torn in half.
Right, okay, well, if I can clarify, right now, the only item before us at this moment is to add those 5 words to the end. The contingent on host agreement execution. There will be a vote on that first, all right? And then if that passes, it becomes part of the motion. And that'll be the new motion. If not, we'll be back to the original motion. I can add that this is something that the letter that was sent, received by me from the city solicitor today. I did speak to her, and she did say that, again, I follow where you're coming from, that was her recommendation to add those words, to the end, and we're not going to, and at the same time, to hold signing of the agreement, or the letter of opposition, until such time as the host agreement has been taken care of. So even though we'll be voting it tonight, it's not like it's going to be signed 24 hours from now after the mayor signs the vote. It's going to be held until such time as the host agreement is finalized. Just saying.
Okay, so now my understanding is that we can vote this measure through, but the letter of non-opposition will not be signed until we have an agreement on host
Correct.
That is correct.
contract. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome. Councilor Delissio, then Councilor Conti. Okay, thank you. Councilor Delissio.
Yeah, I had some concerns, and that clarification did help ease some of them, but some of the concerns I have is we haven't even had the public hearing. We haven't had the opportunity to have the principals come down in front of us to get a feel for them, get a feel for what they're looking to do. They gave us a proposal. Some of the things in the proposal I have some concerns with. I don't know that from a time perspective, this needs to be taken out of committee at this point. I'd like to get some more information. I'd like to have the opportunity to get a public hearing before I, say that I'm not opposed to them opening their dispensary.
Okay. Right. First, it was already voted out of committee. It was voted out of committee last week. That's why it's before us right now.
I misspoke, I think.
Right,
What
okay.
I'm saying is moving this forward.
Okay. Secondly, again, the public hearing will be on the 6th. This won't be part of the special permit application. This is something that is totally separate and distinct from that.
I
Yeah, I don't know if that
But
clarifies it or
What
not.
I'm saying
but-
is it's our first opportunity where we
understand
meet the principals.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps, I'll leave my comments at that.
Yeah, no, I just want to, I did want to clarify. There's a lot of things on this, and again, this is the first time we've gone through this procedure, but there are a lot of things that happen concurrently from the conversations I've had with the city solicitor, from the research that I've done. So there are certain things that the applicant is doing with the Department of Public Health, and then there is a special permit application, which will be for us in 3 weeks, from now. So this is just something, this and the host agreement, that there's like 3 parts to the puzzle.
Certainly, I
In part.
understand
There's
that.
actually 5, but those are the first 3.
I certainly
Okay.
understand that.
So I just want to clarify.
No, and I thank you. I mean,
Okay.
I understand that piece of it. My bigger concern is, we're asking to provide a letter of non-opposition, albeit after the host agreement. I understand that. We still haven't had the opportunity to speak with the principal, and so that's my concern at this point.
Thank you. Councilor Blair?
Just a point, Frank, this puts us in no obligation to vote this through.
Correct.
The final
Correct.
decision is at the end when we have a vote of this council whether to allow it. The way I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, this is just letting them go forward with the state paperwork. Then we've added that bit about the host agreement.
Actually, they have added
We
it.
still have a final vote whether this council wants them in the city.
Right. If I may, to clarify
It's
part
a
of this.
three-step.
Right. One of the things that our special permit application calls for is that they have to get this certificate of registry from the Department of Public Health.
Yeah.
They cannot get that certificate until among the steps, is that we have to provide a letter, in this case, a letter of non-opposition to them, which then they take to the state. Now, there are certain things that they are doing they or any firm that's doing this, it has to do at the state level. Now, later, once near the end of the process, you're right, once all of the pieces that are required by the special permit are gathered, right, it'll be at that point that we will close the public hearing. As I mentioned during the committee meetings last week, I anticipate that this public hearing that we will have on June 6th will be continued for probably several months, because of the fact that one of the parts that we require as part of the special permit application is this particular letter. From some of the research that I've been doing, I've learned that the Department of Public Health, in some situations, in terms of granting this, they are backed up 5 to 6 months. So it may very well be that we cannot close the public hearing, obviously, until all of the pieces of the puzzle are in. And probably one of the pieces of the puzzle will be the certificate of registry that is a requirement of our ordinance for part of the special permit application. I mean, in an ideal world, it probably would have been better if all of that had been taken care of before they had submitted the paperwork to have for the special permit. But once they filed the paperwork in the clerk's office, the clock started running. We had a certain number of days that we had to call for a public hearing. If we did not do that, as the city solicitor reminded us last week, then we could have ended up in a situation where it would have been, I forgot the exact term that she used, but basically they would be able to get this without going through anything. It would have been just kind of an automatic thing. So at this point, it's kind of, I think Councilor Cooper hit it on the head when he said this was, it seemed to be an example of the cart before the horse, in that the letter of opposition and the request for that probably should have come before we get the application, and then all these other matters of host agreement and all the rest of it probably even, I think you spoke very well last week, Councilor Cooper, probably wouldn't even be in our minds at this particular time. So yes, to answer your question, this does not hold us to
Bind us
approving
to
this.
any-
Exactly. All this is something that they need to take.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Councilor Vice President, you got your hand a couple times and then down and then back.
Yeah. I agree with Mr. Blair, and I appreciate us all bringing this out. I just see this as procedural. This doesn't bind us to anything, but it allows a business to go forward with the state, and we can accept it or deny it later based on our own preferences. But this, to me, this is just a procedural vote with really not much future commitment or really importance. This is just kind of a courtesy to a business so that they can go do their state thing and then come back to us. So I support voting this out tonight, and you have my support.
I should add, by the way, one other thing related to this. If the Department of Public Health denies the certificate, then that kills the whole process. We won't even be having the public hearing. They'll just kill it at that point. Okay? Councilor Cooper and then Councilor Hall.
Thank
Jack,
you,
did
sir.
you have your hand up? Did you have your hand? Oh, you did.
I did at one time, but
You're all set.
Stanley said exactly what I was
Okay,
going to
so,
say.
okay, thank you. So Councilor Cooper and then Councilor Hall.
So I, back to my notes from May 9th, when
Okay.
Attorney Galvin was here, and I asked a question at that time, how can I support but not oppose before we vet the application? That was the question I asked of her. And this is what she said. This is medical, and it's 5 parts. It consists of the letter of non-opposition, which she said needs to go, which we've all said I'm regurgitating a bit, but I have to sort of get my head around where I'm at with this. We need that before the state license can be granted, which Frank just discussed. Number 2 is the host agreement. Number 3 is a special permit submission in here, and number 4 is the hearing, and number 5 is it's closed. And you have 90 days to condition the special permit granting with any additional conditions beyond what's in there. So I feel like I'm in support of non-opposition, the templated one that I saw online. I have no problem with that. Where my problem comes in is that we seem to be combining 1 and 2 in this. But I don't think you do, because she said it was 5 things. So I don't see this as 5. I see this as 1, because this is one motion that says contingent upon. So we'll give it to you. We'll give you the non-opposition if you do this. And if we like what you say in this. But that's the only time we're not in opposition. If we don't like what you want to give us in a host agreement, we're not in support. That's what this is saying to me. I don't know that that's what we want to do, right?
Okay.
We want to say, in my opinion, we want to say, we are not opposing this, go through the process.
Right.
And one piece of the 5 is a host agreement. And we have combined it by adding this language, my opinion.
Gotcha.
My opinion. We are adding 1 and 2 together to come up with a motion to send. And I'm just trying to make it cleaner, because what we're saying is, by saying this, in my mind, my understanding of this is that we're saying, if we don't like what you say in the host agreement, then we're not in support.
Yeah.
And I don't think DPH is going to go for that. If they get, I would like to see other communities that have put this language in non-opposition that have been granted a certificate by the state.
Mr. President, may I?
Just,
Point of order.
yeah, so what is your point of
So
order?
my
No.
question did she make a motion to make the amendment?
Yes.
And that was seconded?
Yes, yeah, and that's what I was asking.
That's what- Okay. My apologies, coming a little late to the game. I didn't recall that portion
Okay.
of it. Continue.
Okay. Now, relative to the host agreement, the host agreement, by the way, is not something that is part of the special permit process. It's not even required by the state. Again,
But
yeah,
you're-
no, I understand. I understand. I just want to clarify, in case anybody was wondering, the host.
You're not doing it.
The host.
You don't do a host
right,
agreement.
The host agreement is something that is not part of the is not part of the required process. It's not part of our special permit, right? The host agreement is something that the registered marijuana dispensaries have introduced across the state, and I guess also in other states, that when they are trying to come into a community, they are making for lack of a better word, a contract with the community that in exchange for their facility coming in, we are going to do such and such, which you saw in the information that they distributed to us. And again, I mean, that's something that, as Council Hall had mentioned, contracts is something that are handled by the administration, not by the council. However, I have spoken to the mayor on a couple of occasions about this, and any input that the council wants to provide, separate, regardless of how this goes, on the community host agreement, he is willing to listen to. It doesn't mean necessarily he'll implement them, but he is willing, to take that information as part of it, when he'll be working with finalizing, and then, as I said, this is a certain amount of going back and forth. Okay, so that's just a bit about it. Just a second, I'm going to recognize Council Hall, and then
Thank you. And
I'll get that, Council.
let me see if I can answer your question. Absolutely. You are absolutely correct. These are two separate things. The only reason why I am making this amendment, and that wasn't really necessarily the way I wanted to go, I'll be quite honest with you, but I mean, from the solicitor advice, it's okay. Because we had discussions, and people were concerned about having to write in the host agreement, in the letter of non-opposition, could we write a contingency? And the answer is no. That had gone through, and part of the information that I gave all of you even said that New Bedford actually tried to do the same thing, went through the state said, no, you can't muddle it up. So we are not going to. That is not what our opposition letter, it will not say contingency. The only contingency is for our motion here to be able to do business so that this council can still be allowed to add information on the host agreement, the host community agreement. So let me clarify. There is a host community agreement that has already been agreed on by the mayor and the applicant. That's already been done, and that is the mayor's prerogative to do so. We were a little bit concerned about that. So as Mr. President did say, we both talked to the mayor and said, would you be willing to get input from the council? And he said, yes, I would. So they are two separate things. So they are two separate things. I'm not trying to combine necessarily. I'm trying to allow the council to have what they wanted to have and to continue to go forward. I'm trying to accommodate what your concerns were and trying to go forward also. And I hope that makes sense, what I'm doing.
Right. Yes, and just if I may, I mean, that's basically, this is kind of a reaction to all that went on during the committee meeting last week. As we came out. Yes, Councilor Cooper.
What I think I heard you said, Councilor Hall, is that the city solicitor went back to see if there would be, if we could add to the form letter of non-opposition, and the answer to that was no.
That's
right?
correct.
So that answers my question about the state won't accept it, right?
That is correct.
And my concern that the state would not accept it, and you answered that. The other concern, what I think I heard you say, is that there's already been a host agreement signed and...
No, it has not been signed.
But agreed.
No, there has been some discussion. There's been discussion, but it's still...
It's still in the works.
It's still in the works, exactly.
Is that a
That
fair
is correct.
statement?
That is a
Okay.
fair statement, yes.
And then so what this motion doesn't affect the language, I just want to make sure we're clear. This additional language does not affect the language that would potentially affect the ability, to your best of anyone's knowledge, the ability for them to get a certificate of registration from the Massachusetts Department of Public Health.
Absolutely.
Is that a fair statement? Okay.
That is a fair statement.
So
Yes.
what this is doing is basically, this vote, adding this language, is saying that we want a seat at the table when, and not if, I don't want to say that, because when you, the administration and this entity get together to discuss a host agreement. Is that a fair
That
statement?
is absolutely right. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Council,
Right.
That's a big thing.
Councilor Reynolds? Are you all set?
I think I'm all set with this. I mean, I was originally just suggesting that we didn't even have to vote the additional wordage in. We could just go with what it was originally after Mr. Council Conti realized that it's not really changing anything. It's mostly to allow the applicant to do his business at the state level. So those 5 words you added is really about this body here. I don't know if we need it or we don't need it, but if it makes certain people feel comfortable, I don't mind, but I personally don't care whether we add it. But if it makes the rest of you feel comfortable, then okay, I'm game.
Okay, thank you. Council Blair.
Frank, can't we separate those 5 words into another motion to the mayor that we want to be involved?
Well, first off, we are already involved. I mean, by that what I mean is, you know, I had spoken to the mayor on a couple of occasions about this host agreement because it was new to me. At some point, we are going to have to probably do a separate vote, as I mentioned last week, to authorize the mayor to actually sign it or whatever the case would happen to be. Right. This language is more, again, as Council Hall and as Councilor Connie mentioned, you know, this is more just to address the concerns that a lot of the people here on the council had, you know, relative to the host agreement and some of these other issues that were going on.
Well, why muddy the water and put those last 5 words in?
Well, again, the amendments here before us, and we're going to vote whether to add it or not. That's what it comes down to. I mean, it's just a matter, again, there were councilors who were concerned, Council Blair, about this contingency.
I know. I heard the concerns.
Right. And I can tell you that...
This to death.
Right.
Let's get it done what has to be done.
Vice President Denman.
So I did second the amendment because I think we should have a vote on it. I personally am going to vote no on the amendment, and then whether it passes or fails, I'm going to vote yes on the main motion. So I would recommend that if you're against the amendment, vote no on the amendment as well, and we are agreeing 100% tonight.
Vote on the amendment, get it over with.
We will as soon as all the discussion is over. All right, so are there any other questions relative to the proposed amendment? So again, the item before us right now, is to add these 5 words, contingent on host agreement execution, at the end of the motion. If this passes, in civil majority, if this passes, it'll then become part of the main motion. We'll be then voting on the main motion. If it doesn't, we're back to the main motion as originally read. Okay, people clear on that? So yes vote is to add the amendment, the no vote is to not add the amendment. If there are no other concerns on this matter, we'll have a roll call vote. The vote will begin with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delicio.
No.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
No.
Vice President Denley.
No.
Ms. Reynolds.
No.
Mr. Cooper.
No.
Ms. Jackson.
No.
Mr. Blair.
No.
President Cook.
Yes.
3 yeas, 7 nays.
Okay, the motion fails. 3 to 7. Okay, so now we're back to
That being said,
the original motion.
Yes.
All right, the motion was already seconded, so it is in order. Are there any other comments or concerns on that item? Council Hall?
let me just...
I saw your hand.
Yeah, well, sure. So since we did this, and we've already had the discussions, I'd like to now vote this out of this committee with the plan that this letter of non-opposition will not be signed by you, Mr. President. I just want everybody to understand until the mayor has an opportunity to review any suggestions submitted by this honorable body, and if he so chooses, to negotiate and sign a new host community agreement. That's what this is all about, okay? So I hope that's semi-comfortable for some folks. So, I'm done.
All right, are there any other concerns or comments on this matter? All right, hearing none.
No.
Oh, excuse me, Councilor Delicio, I'm
I
sorry.
just want to clarify my stance because I feel that it did get a little muddied up. I'm not in opposition to an RMD coming to the city of Attleboro.
Right.
I'm not even necessarily opposed to BCW Inc. I'm opposed to entering into some semblance of an agreement without having the opportunity to vet the company first. So I just want to make sure that that's understood.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or comments? So again, this will be a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delicio.
No.
President Cook.
Yes,
9 yeas, 1 nay.
motion passes. Anything else, Councilor Hall?
After that, I'm not sure, but I do want to remind everybody that tomorrow at 6 PM, and I know that Chief Hegney is going around to different places, so I'd like to put a little push for that. I think this is an awesome idea. Chief Hegney will be at 6 o'clock at the Dunkin' Donuts at 104 North Main Street. That's where I live. That's my neighborhood.
That's the morning or evening?
6 PM. I know, yeah, 6 PM. So you can have
I
donuts.
didn't hear the P.
You can have donuts all day long. And decaf. All right, so that's it. That ends my business for zoning and land use, and I like to call a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Conti.
Mr. President, reporting for the Committee on Capital Improvement City Development, May 15th has come and gone, and I haven't heard from Community Development whether or not they've been approved or not. Have you?
No, I've not.
Yeah, so I suspect they haven't.
But they have.
But we have nothing to bring before the council this evening. We do look forward to a meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. I should add as a follow-up to Councilor Conti's comments that Dorothy Brissette is going to notify us whatever the outcome is. So we're at the appropriate time, but we haven't heard anything yet, so it comes and goes. Thank you. Councilor Perico.
Thank you. Reporting for traffic and transportation this evening. I don't have any business. However, I would like to let my fellow councilors know and people at home that Thursday will be our regional area for Special Olympics, and we're the host city at Attleboro High School. So if you usually walk up and down Rathbone Road, it's going to be a little crowded with some cars. But if you have an opportunity to come take a walk around the track and see all the wonderful things that take place there during the day, it's really a heartwarming and exciting place to be. It will be 90 degrees, so please bring a bottle of water. And if anyone has a sprayer, they would like to borrow it. So that concludes my business for traffic and transportation. I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Denley.
Thank you, President Cook.
You're welcome.
Reporting for the Committee on Licenses, I have one motion tonight. From the document of May 2nd, 2017, I move to approve the 2017 new Class 2 license from New England Automax Inc., 800 Washington Street, Attleboro, Mass. for 40 customer parking spaces and 60 display spaces.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Yes, the gentleman came before us last week. We all asked him questions. I have all the appropriate paperwork and bonds, and he should be good to go.
Okay. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, President Cook. I will not be in attendance next week, so I will leave my committee to Mrs. Perica. I don't anticipate anything, so you'll probably just cancel it. But with that said, I would like to call for committee meetings at the next appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Councilor Delizia, do you want to call for a committee meeting on behalf of Councilor Hagney?
Yes, I would. Reporting for budget and appropriations. There is no business tonight. Would like to call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time. We still have our budget hearing tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Reynolds.
Thank you, President Cook.
You're welcome.
Reporting for city property and claims, I have two motions this evening. From the docket of May 16th, 2017, I move in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request to accept the donation of one used Kenmore electric range and one used Kenmore cold spot refrigerator with a total estimated value of $400 from an anonymous donor to the 12+/MDAP programs at Attleboro High School.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
I have only one, and I did send around an email because I was stumped at what MDAP stood for, and it stands for Multi-Dimensional Adaptive Programs at the high school. It's a specialized education instruction, which is, we all know of it there, but for some reason, the MDAP just went right over my head.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Perica.
Thank you very much, President Cook. This is for whoever the anonymous donor was. These two pieces of equipment will come in so handy in that classroom. I'm in that classroom on a regular basis, and my daughter volunteers in that class as well. They make dog biscuits there. They're teaching all really phenomenal life skills, and it'll come in really, really handy. So thank you to whoever it was that donated.
Yeah, it was great. I agree.
Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Okay, for my second, and I just want to thank quickly Council Conti, who brought that up, and it forced me to look up what it stood for. I knew it was a specialized program, but for what, I didn't know, so thank you, Councilor Conti. Although you don't have to do it often. From the docket of May 16th, 2017, I move in accordance with Section 1-12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request to accept the donation of one lilac tree to be planted in Capron Park in memory of Pauline Arena, donated by James Arena and Denise Bigda, with a value of $50.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments, please?
Oh, I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. Are there any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, this matter requires a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
And I apologize, I have three motions. From the docket of May 16th, 2017, I entertain a motion to approve the mayor's request to declare the following water department items as surplus and available for disposition: 12 damaged fire hydrants and associated parts.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please? Okay. Any other concerns or comments on this matter? Hearing none, this matter requires a roll call vote, and the vote will begin with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
That is all the business City Property and Claims has this evening, but I would like to call a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. Reporting for Personnel and Human Services from the docket of May 16, 2017, I move to transfer $114,740.34 from citywide reserve compensation 53rd week to citywide other financing uses, and to further transfer $114,740.34 from citywide other financing uses to fund 3427-499700.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
Just very quickly, this is a school technology upgrade grant. The city pays 60%, the grant pays 40%, and they need to get this voted so they can get it spent in the time of the terms of the grant. Okay, that concludes my comment.
Okay. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. I move to transfer $1,422 from citywide reserve fund for transfer to account public library tuition and books to cover tuition and books for a full-time staff member who has been approved to take courses next semester beginning in June and finishing in August 2017, and are eligible for reimbursement according to contract agreement, Article 21, Section 1.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. We discussed it last week in committee.
Okay. Are there any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delissio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you. From the docket of May 2nd, 2017, I move to approve with the mayor's request to approve a 36-month transportation service agreement with H&L Bloom with 2 one-year renewals at the sole option of the school committee.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments?
No, only to thank Mark Furtado for coming last week and explaining some of the differences, the pricing, what things were that we thought were removed that are still within the contract, and sort of giving us a more detailed explanation of what our questions were.
Okay. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Councilor Parika.
Thank you, President Cook.
You're welcome.
I have been missing from council for a couple of meetings, and that's the only one that I didn't quite get to. Are they planning to purchase, is Bloom planning to purchase new buses? Because that was one of the questions in the contract that
So
we.
let me flip the page here in my notes.
Sure. That was the only question that I had, because I think that's one of the
What you
things that
said were
came up.
2015, they will be 2015 or newer buses. They are buying off-lease buses.
Sure.
And they do the age of the bus, not the average age of the bus, because you can have a whole bunch of junks and buy a couple of new ones, and then your average comes out to what your average is supposed to be.
Sure.
And so they have chosen, and he said other communities, Dayton, I think, was one of them that he mentioned, pick the year and sort of stick to that.
Great. Thank you.
They're doing cameras, four-corner cameras in all of the buses. And they are doing scanners, so when the kids get on the bus, they scan, and when they get off the bus, they scan, so they know where they picked little Johnny up, and they know where they let little Johnny off, and they know when they picked him up and when they took him off. And if he gets on the bus but doesn't get to school, that means little Johnny got from where the bus let him off to the school door, went in a different direction. Or Big Johnny, when he gets to the high school.
Or he's sleeping under a seat.
Or he's sleeping under the seat. Right. So that was really Mark's update. We talked about fuel charges. We talked about the fact that thankfully we didn't enter into the option that originally came before us, 2010-ish, 12-ish, I can't remember the year, where we were a 10-year. We were 3, a 2, and 5 one-year extensions, because it was about $100. If we were still in that, it was $100 higher per day per bus in that contract. So thankfully, somebody said no to that, because we really would have been spending a whole lot more money for buses had we agreed to what we thought was a good rate at that time. I think that summarized what he said.
Thank you.
Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call. We'll begin with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delisio.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes the motions this evening for Personnel and Human Services, but we'll call for a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome.
Reporting for Public Works this evening from the docket of May 16, 2017. I move to approve the mayor's request to transfer $5,000 from account 6100-578300 Water Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund to account 6100-517155 Water Enterprise Fund PDP MedRx to a medical account for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Second?
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments?
Actually, I have two, I have another motion very similar to this, something we do at the end of the year, just to clear everything up.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call. We're beginning with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delisio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. From the
You're welcome.
docket of May 16, 2017, I move to approve the mayor's request to transfer $4,000 from account 6000-578300 Wastewater Enterprise Fund Reserve Fund to account 6000-517155 Wastewater Enterprise Fund PDP-MedRx to a medical account for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Second?
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
Ditto.
Ditto. Okay. Any other comments or concerns? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Delisio.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. From the
You're welcome.
docket of May 2nd, 2017, I move to approve the mayor's request that the Attleboro Municipal Council approve the grant of the permanent drainage easement to the city and the associated release deed to WB Construction for property that the city no longer requires due to the reduced size of the drainage easement.
Second?
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments?
None
Please.
this evening.
Okay, thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Delicio.
Mr. Delisio.
Yes.
Ms. Hall.
Yes.
Mr. Conti.
Yes.
Mrs. Parika.
Yes.
Vice President Denley.
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds.
Yes.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
President Cook.
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you. I have no further business this evening, but I would like to call for a meeting at the appropriate time next week, which I hope would be upfront, since you did give me a lot of homework.
I noticed that. Okay, does anybody, okay, thank you. I don't think anybody has any other guests coming in, so we'll, Councilor Jackson, your committee will be first then,
Thank you.
next week, Public Works. Okay. Councilor Blair,
Thank you,
you're welcome.
President Cook. Reporting public safety and emergency management. I move to transfer $27,000 from account 12101-000-514020, police night differential, to account 12101-000-558310, police uniforms, to purchase motorcycle uniforms for those officers who qualify and train to operate the motorcycle.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments, please?
This is a complete uniform from the helmet to the glasses to the boots to whatever safety required for these motorcycle officers, and we're fortunate to have 10 officers who are qualified. Most towns don't. So basically, that's what that is.
Okay. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Denley?
Yes.
Mrs. Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
President Cook?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The docket of May 16, 2017. I move in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request to expend approximately $4,990.61 in FY 2017 Underage Alcohol Enforcement Grant Fund sponsored by the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, Highway Safety Division, and any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Police Department.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. Are there any comments?
Other than it'll be put to good use, it's a good system out there, and as I've said many times, we're fortunate to have the personnel over there that writes these grants, because they come through most of the time for us.
Okay. Thank you. Any other concerns or comments? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Delissio.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mrs. Parika?
Yes.
Vice President Denley?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
President Cook?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
You're
From
welcome.
docket of May 16, 2017, I move in accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro to approve the mayor's request that the municipal council accept the FFY16 Edward Bryan Memorial Justice Assistant Grant through the New Bedford Police Department and the U.S. Department of Justice grant, and approve expending approximately $10,611 in grant funds and any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Police Department. No match is required by the City of Attleboro, and the funds must be extended no later than September 30th, 2019. There is no match required for this grant.
Second.
Thank you. The motion is in order. Are there any comments?
Ditto's on my last comment.
Okay. Outside of dittos, does anybody have any other comments or concerns? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Blair.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ms. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Ms. Hegney? I'm sorry. Vice President Denley?
Yes.
Mrs. Parika?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Delissio?
Yes.
President Cook?
Yes.
10 yeas, 0 nays.
The motion passes.
I've got a couple announcements. The first, a letter, or with the office correspondence from the chief today, Chief Hagney. Commander Paul Brilliant is retired from the Attleboro Police Auxiliary Unit after serving 45 years of distinguished service. All of us know, but maybe the people don't. All of the time that you see these auxiliary officers out on the road at parades, extra duty, it's for the bubble. These are volunteers to get out there and volunteer. So Paul's been doing that for 45 years. So I wish the rest of myself and the rest of the council and my public safety committee wish him the best in retirement. And on a sad note, we had a passing last week of a dedicated fireman who served the city well, Rolly Harrison. Also he was an old employee for me for a short time away, a long time ago. Rolly retired retired due to some health reasons, and he passed away this last week in Florida. So again, myself, my committee, Public Safety Committee, and all the councilmen here wish our condolences to the family. And I don't know, there's not much more to say. I mean, he fought cancer quite valiantly till the end. I have no other business this evening, President Cook, but would request a committee meeting next week at the appropriate time.
Mr. Blair, normally at the beginning of the meeting, we'll have a moment of silence for people who served the city have departed. Since we didn't do that, would you like to do one now? Would that be appropriate?
Yes, I was going to leave that up to you, the next meeting, to read the obits
Right.
and whatnot. I just,
Right.
it was a small obituary in the paper today, and I thought it appropriate now rather than 2 weeks later, at least to mention it, so some people out there that listen to our council meeting would be aware.
Okay.
And that next week, next meeting, Frank, I was assuming, and I'm sorry,
That's all right.
that we do it properly with some correct information.
Okay. But it wouldn't hurt to do it both times.
Excuse
So
me.
why don't we have a moment of silence now, and then we'll give more information last time, if that's all right with everybody. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the business for the council this evening. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's in order. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passed. We're adjourned at 8:07. Thank you very much.
Getting more security for that.
Are you going away? Or?
No, I joined the board of directors for Oncom now.
Oh, yeah, I saw it in the
And
paper.
that is my induction into the
Okay.
board of directors, so